We have a very special guest in the studio today, journalist Asmaa Malik from the Montreal Gazette. I'm Kenny Copps, and joined to my left by Aubree, the news editor for the Dolphin. So let's get this started, Asmaa. I just wanted to ask you generally, what got you into journalism, and can you basically take us through your journalism career kind of briefly?
Sure. I was always interested in writing, and my sort of first foray into journalism was high school. I was editor-in-chief of my high school paper, which was a lot of power and a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. But when I got into college, I actually became more interested in studying English, and I actually was an English major. And I didn't have a lot to do with the newspaper at the University of Maryland. But when I graduated, I had three different options in mind for what I wanted to do. I thought either I wanted to be an academic and I wanted to go get a master's in English, or I was also interested in American studies and television, and I thought it would be fun to study television and become a TV critic. So I always had a bit of a bent towards writing, a more sort of journalistic style of writing. But then I also decided to apply to journalism school as sort of a backup, thinking, well, maybe I should, try this, because I had that experience writing. And in the end, what actually happened was I got a scholarship to journalism school, and it sort of made the decision for me. And I'm really happy that that's the way things turned out, because I found I'm really, a deadline writer. I really enjoy the pressure of, working quickly and being, up against a wall. And I enjoy talking to people. And really just doing something new every day, which I think is the best part of journalism.
Oh, yeah.
And so I really got into it when I was in J school, and then I did a few internships as a reporter, which was really great. But my first full-time job was as a copy editor at the Star in the Toronto Star, and that was. I'll never forget my first night as copy editor, having never copy edited before in my life, on the Metro desk in Toronto, and sitting with the same story for my full 7-hour shift, trying to write a headline. And it was really, really hard. I'd never written one before, so it's really a skill. You really have to practice to get really good at that. But ever since, I've been a features editor, a news editor, an assistant managing editor for digital at the Gazette Montreal. Now, I'm the deputy managing editor, which is, my job is largely digital. My focus is digital, but I'm also responsible for print and generating ideas for both. So, yeah, it's, as you guys know, it's a really fun job.
Oh, yeah.
We like it. What kind of stories do you focus on, like, in digital?
We find that our readers really love breaking news stories. Like, they want to know, there's an accident. They want to know, what happened right away. They want pictures. They want video. They want the story. Like, we find breaking news really tops our list of most read stories. Also, hockey. Hockey is always on top. Sometimes in our list of Montreal is a huge hockey town, and the Montreal Canadiens are like, they're worshipped by everyone.
Go Habs, go.
Exactly, exactly. I hope they make it to the playoffs. So yeah, we always find in our most read stories, it's like it's a nice mix of murder, mayhem, and Habs.
It's a triple threat.
So what's the most interesting part of your job, being involved with all this digital media? Because your stories can really be almost up to the minute with all the new opportunities out there, whether this digital media wave we've been in over the last decade or so.
What's the hardest part of my job?
Or what's the hardest part, like trying to keep up, and then what's the most interesting part?
Well, the most interesting part is that we're really learning things as we go along. We're making a big shift from being a traditional news organization to really being out there on different platforms and trying new things. Like, one of the things we have a really popular hockey site, and we're creating an iPhone app for it. I've never created an iPhone app before. So this is great for me. It's a new way. It's a way to, I'm not doing the programming or anything, but planning the content for it. It's really interesting for me to, how do people interact with information on different platforms and different devices? So, whereas on the website, they want like the analysis and they want the, the in-depth, writing of our hockey writers. On the app, they want the stats, they want the live score, they want access to a depth of information that they don't necessarily want when they're in front of their computer. So for us, it's, when we put out an iPhone app last fall, which was a big thing for us too. Like, we're discovering the iPad app is a real hybrid of the newspaper and the website. There's 3 editions a day, like there used to be with a newspaper. Now we have 1 print newspaper, but 3 editions of an iPad and a constantly changing website. So these are like different. We learn about the different what content works on which platform, and this has been huge for us because we used to only ever be the newspaper. So that's really the fun part, and it's also the challenging part. I mean, we have to keep up, and we have to be on top of new trends and new ways that our readers are consuming information. I'm just floored by it. How do you put out 3 editions a day? Well, we have so much. I mean, we don't put out different. We don't necessarily put out exactly different stories for the iPad than we do for the website. But we do since we're posting stories all throughout the day on the website, we're picking, what are the main stories. We have a 6 a.m. iPad edition, an 11 a.m. iPad edition, and a 6 p.m. iPad edition. We're really taking content that we're doing for the web and producing throughout the day, but packaging it differently for the iPad. And the iPad's so cool because it really does the layout for you. You really pick the template that you want. Like we have like 6 different templates. Like one is more photo heavy. One is more big story with smaller photos with smaller stories next to it. Mm-hmm. One is a little more eclectic and with a mix of big and small stories. And with the iPad, it's so cool because you just plop in the stories, which we do from the website, and it reformats them, and you can kind of flip it around, and it's pretty crazy.
Where has that been?
Yeah. And can we get it?
It's pretty crazy. You put in a list of stories, and and you just pick the template, and you just off you go. It's really cool. It's it's
I'm very jealous.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, I miss the traditional layout of the paper too. The nice thing with my job is I get to do both. Like our managing editor was on holiday a couple of weeks ago, and that was actually the big week in Egypt, and I got to sort of do the print side of things, which is great. I love having my hand in both. I mean, I came up through print, and that's sort of always been something that I've enjoyed. But it's always nice every once in a while to go back to it. It's so tactile, and you can really put your stamp on things, whereas with the web, it keeps changing.
I know you already do a lot with digital media with your 3 different editions per day with the iPad and such, but do you envision maybe doing more in the future?
I think we will be doing more in the future.
Wow.
I think I think we have to just wait and see what comes next. I mean, we want to be relevant to people. We want to be where people get their information. Because that doesn't mean newspaper; it means news. So we want to be however people are getting it. We want to be there.
What's one of the most interesting stories you've done?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I write a monthly column about technology and relationships. And I think the most fun column I ever wrote was about my 11-year-old nephew, who in a very odd way, I discovered that he had been editing Wikipedia entries in his spare time.
Wow.
And
completely normal.
yeah, exactly. And what actually had happened was my husband's a filmmaker, and I was editing his I just kind of looked at his Wikipedia page, and I found something wrong, and I went in to edit it, and I realized someone had added this really obscure detail about his mother, and I was like, who did this? And I went back to check, and it didn't have the name of the person who had edited. It just had an IP address. It just had a number. And I was like, who's this person who knows this detail about my husband? So I clicked on it, and I wasn't suspecting anything, but anyway, I clicked on it. And I saw this person had also edited entries about a brontosaurus, a spinosaurus, and a raptor. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's my nephew who's obsessed with dinosaurs. So in his spare time, he edits dinosaur entries and entries about his uncle. And I confronted him, and I said, wow, I know what you're up to, like when you're up in front of your computer in your room. And he was kind of like, yeah, so I edit Wikipedia entries. He didn't really think it was a big deal. So I did a Q&A interview with him to get a sense of what does an 11-year-old think about the way the internet manipulates information. Like, what does he think? Like, if he thinks, he can be an authority on dinosaurs. That's pretty amazing. So it was just an interesting insight into how like younger generations, what they call digital natives, kids who grow up with technology as sort of a given in their lives, how they view the world, and it was quite fascinating. I think that was a really fun article. So it's a straight Q&A, and he says things like, I said to him, you know, what do you think about people who say that Wikipedia isn't reliable because it's on the internet? And he goes, that's sheer ignorance.
He's an authority.
He knows. He's been published in Wikipedia. I guess he's fine.
My kind of 11-year-old.
Seems like the kind of 11-year-old you were.
I wouldn't go that far on my end. But kind of speaking of younger journalistic types, like people in high school or college who are interested in going into journalism, as a journalist yourself, like what would you say to them if they want to really make it as a journalist? Like, are there any steps they should do, or what's like the one piece of advice you would
there's
give?
a couple of things I would suggest. First is plug yourself in. Be really involved in social media. There's so much out there about digital journalism. There's so many organizations that are, reporting about what other newspapers are doing. The Neiman Lab at Harvard, or the Knight Center for Digital Media, or Poynter Institute in Florida. It's so easy to get information now, to find out what other newspapers are doing and to really educate yourself. There's a great website that Poynter runs called newsu.org that has courses you can take on, new trends in digital journalism. So really, take advantage of all the stuff that's out there, and really connect through social media. Understand how people are using social media. Take a look at how you use social media. That's a good reflection of how people use. Believe it or not, you're pretty representative of what other people are doing. So, take that stuff seriously. Understand that that's not just a way to, to tell people what you're up to, but to really get a sense of, how people just contact with it and connect with information. Try to, build an area of expertise for yourself. If you have an interest outside journalism, cultivate it. Become an expert on something. Really make yourself stand out. So when you are at so you have ideas, you're able to bring ideas to the table. I would say that, in addition to having strong writing skills, which you have to keep practicing, writing is one of those things that you have to keep. Whether you're writing for television, whether you're writing for a newspaper, you can't just, it just doesn't come. It's a craft. You really have to work at it. And so that's key, whether you're writing for the web. It's a different style of writing for the web, but it's still good writing and good reporting. That's really important. And I'd say the number one thing is really become an ideas generator. Be the person that people go to for the new idea, the new angle, the different way of looking at things. Don't just take an assignment that someone gives you and just say, okay, I'm going to literally do this assignment. Think, okay, how can I bring a fresh, how can I bring a fresh angle to this story? If you think about it, what we do is so cyclical. It's like, okay, so it's graduation, it's June, so we have to do a graduation story. Okay, it's back to school, it's September. We have to do, back to school story. So think of how you can do these stories differently, not in the same way they've always been done.
And you mentioned social media in there. What are some do's and don'ts for people when it comes to social media who want to be involved in journalism?
The number one do is understand privacy settings. Understand what information is out there about you. It really says a lot about you if you've got good privacy settings. It means that you actually care and you understand how the internet works. So that would be my number one thing. Personally, I use Facebook for personal reasons. I use Twitter, which is very public, for some of my interests outside of journalism, but mostly for, to read what other people are doing in journalism. And I'll use LinkedIn for strictly professional reasons so that I can network with people and, really get a sense of who the other people are in my field. But just be smart about social media.
Now, for journalists, aspiring journalists, what are some of the best outlets of social media you think?
I think Twitter is really great. It's very transparent. It's very open. There's so many smart journalists on Twitter. There's great writers on Twitter. I was talking about how the New Yorker writer Susan Orlean is on Twitter, and she tweets about all of her writing process. And it's really great to, when you see someone who you think is such a great writer, you're like, oh, okay, it must be so easy for them. But when you follow her, you realize how it's pretty agonizing, but it's very rewarding at the same time. So I would say that Twitter is pretty great for that.
So you've been at Lemoyne now for a couple of days. It's been nice to have you here. What's been your overall impression of the college? Like, how's your experience been here?
It's been fabulous. I've really enjoyed talking to the students. They've had some great questions, and they're really keen on, getting more involved with digital journalism. It's interesting. In the last couple of days, I've noticed my Twitter followers have gone up by like about 15, and a couple of people tweeted about my talk on Monday, which was nice. And I'm always happy to have more followers, and they've all come from Lemoyne, so I can see they're very engaged.
As a journalist, what's the one quality you need to really succeed, like above all others, and to make yourself stand out from the crowd?
Sure, you need to be flexible, and you need to be, well, there's two qualities. You need to be flexible, and you need to be open, and you really need to be able to change you need to be, if you're out on a story, if you're out reporting something and you realize, oh my God, this isn't exactly what I thought it was, you have to be able to shift gears really quickly. I mean, you have to do this in terms of technology, as I was saying, with all these new things coming out. You have to be able to understand quickly what the next big thing is. So I think if you've got an open mind and you're willing to keep willing to change and kind of in the best way, I think that you're going to be in good shape.
Thanks for your time today, Asmaa. It was nice having you here in the studio.
Thank you.
Asmaa Malik from the Montreal Gazette. For Aubree Weaver, I'm Kenny Copps. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.